So here we have a hegemonic power in 1970-71 that is now into the red. Now, what happened to the British Empire when it went into the red? It collapsed. What happened to the Roman Empire? It collapsed. Every time a major power goes into the red, it starts fading. And the fall is very close. In the case of the United States, between 1971 and 2020, let's say, the beginning of the pandemic, its hegemony and power increased exponentially along with its trade deficit. It is the only power in the world that became stronger as a result of going deeper into a deficit. That has never happened before. How did they succeed in doing it? And this is your answer. By maintaining a strict monopoly on international payments. It was the only country in the history of the planet that had a currency which was in demand. People wanted the dollar, even if they didn't want to buy anything from the Americans. Because when you put petrol in your car, if you still have a petrol car, okay, even if it is a company owned by the Dutch, and it buys oil drilled in, let's say, Nigeria, from a Nigerian company, and there's no American involved at all. Every time, because it's denominated in dollars, every time you fill up your petrol tank, you are demanding dollars. You have to convert pounds or yen or euros into dollars. So the ownership of the international payment system is what allows the United States, much more so than the ubiquitous US Army, Navy, and Air Force, to maintain its hegemony. Kissinger knew that. I mentioned that in the book. In 1970, he asked his people around him. Kissinger back then was National Security Council. He was a national security advisor to Nixon before he became Foreign Secretary. And he said to them, how are we going to maintain our hegemony if we are in the red? And the answer he got was, we'll make other people, other capitalists from the rest of the world, pay for our deficits. This is what has been happening. But why is it that they can do that? Because they have the monopoly of the payment system internationally. What WeChat does, it threatens that monopoly. Remember the story with the German manufacturer? He's out of the dollar system. And with the war in Ukraine, something remarkable happened, because WeChat, on the one hand, and the Central Bank of China, having created a digital currency, its own publicly owned app that allows you to make free payments in renminbi, in the Chinese currency. So there are two things you can use to make international payments for free as a foreigner, as a Briton. You don't have to be Chinese. You have two. You have WeChat and you have the digital currency of the Central Bank of China. There are, as we speak, 210 million accounts of the digital currency. And business people can use it around the world to make free payments without bypassing the dollar system. That is a clear and present mortal danger for American hegemony. The reason why Donald Trump started the Cold War against China, this is my theory in the book. Why did he start attacking Huawei and then ZTE? And then you may say, of course, but Donald Trump is a madman. He would attack anyone just for the sake of it. Well, Joe Biden comes in as the anti-Trump president of the United States. And what does he do with the Cold War that Trump had started? Does he claw back? Does he retreat from it? No, he turbocharges it. He comes out with a declaration in the fall of 2021, essentially sending the message to China, we are going to stop you from becoming an advanced economy by banning all sales of advanced microchips, which is essentially, it's like in 1800, banning steam engines, the export of steam engines to Germany. This is like saying, we are declaring economic warfare against you. And why does he do that? The argument that it's because of Taiwan is rubbish. Nothing has changed about Taiwan. The one China policy had always been accepted by the West since Nixon went to Beijing. So it's not that. It's not that China is building up its army or its navy. I will believe that only when I see Chinese destroyers and frigates outside Los Angeles. For the time being, all I see is American warships outside Shanghai. So none of that makes sense. What makes sense is that the Chinese payment systems, which brings together Chinese finance and Chinese cloud capital, in a most effective way, just visit WeChat and you'll see what I mean, is a mortal danger for the monopoly of the dollar. The war in Ukraine did something quite interesting. This superhighway of all singing, all dancing, digital payments, Chinese payments, the WeChat and the digital currency of the Central Bank of China, that was already there. But it's like building a superhighway, you know, imagine 5 lanes on each side and a big, spanking new, beautiful highway with no cars on it. Because if you were a capitalist, even if you were a Chinese capitalist, you still wanted to use the dollar. Because if you produce aluminum in Shenzhen, you want to sell most of it to the Americans. So you want to sell it for dollars. And then you take your dollars and you take it to Wall Street and you buy American bonds and you buy real estate in Miami and so on. So the Chinese capitalists didn't even want to use this superhighway of payments. But the moment the United States, together with the European Union, confiscated $450 billion worth of Russian money, I'm not judging this. I'm not saying they should have done it or not have done it. I'm simply saying they did it. So imagine you are a Saudi Arabian sheikh, or the emir of some emirate, or some Indonesian bigwig, or Malaysian. There you are.
I'm imagining.
You can imagine, right? And you think, oh my God, they confiscated 450 billion smackers because they didn't like their policies. Well, they may not like me tomorrow because I'm not the best guy in the world. They know that, right? Well, maybe I should hedge my bets, not put all my money in the dollar system. I will put most of my money in the dollar system, but I will put some in the Chinese superhighway. The Americans see that. The smart people in Washington see this as a serious threat. Because if they lose the monopoly of the dollar system, of the payment system internationally, that's it. The United States is finished. They're deeply in the red. They have a huge budget deficit and a huge trade deficit, which they manage to turn into a strength only as long as the Chinese do not touch their monopoly. Chinese big tech does.